All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. A lot of news stories in Iran. We have the U.S. airbase attack, supposedly 15 ballistic missiles fired at two U.S. air bases. It went from one to two. We have a Ukrainian international flight that crashed shortly after taking off from the airport in Tehran. And then we have two earthquakes near Iran's nuclear site. So, by any one's count, that's a lot of news stories focused on one area of the world, and that is where the mainstream media wants us focused. The question becomes, are any of these news stories real, or is this much like Wag the Dog? And in recent days, there's even been headlines about if this whole Iran thing is Trump's Wag the Dog. If you've never seen that film, it's about a president who's in the middle of a scandal. If you haven't seen the film, the president of the United States has had sex with a 12-year-old girl that's essentially a Girl Scout, and he's seeking re-election, and his team is wondering how he's going to get reelected with this scandal making its way into the news. And the man, Robert De Niro, who plays the advisor, says, well, we'll just manufacture a war. And that's what they do. They go and they get the best director in Hollywood and they make it look like a war's going on because you can't remove a wartime president. And of course, that story came out, or that film came out in the time Bill Clinton was in office, and then you had the whole Kosovo thing. It was all very similar with Monica Lewinsky. So anyway, if you've never seen that film, you should definitely check it out. It definitely shed light on what this nation's really about and how truly fictitious the office of the President of the United States is, and a lot of what comes through the mainstream media. So let's just go through some of the details of this story. Definitely some standout things, such as the last Boeing 737 crash being exactly 66 weeks and 6 days ago. But here, let's get through all of it. We'll start with the supposed missile attacks on the U.S. airbase. This morning we have convincing headlines such as satellite images appear to show damage from Iranian missile strikes. Remember, we had this same type of thing after the hoax chemical weapons attack in Syria, and then Trump retaliating by firing at the base, and then headlines just like this the day after. Satellite images appear to show damage. I mean, you can just see how fake the whole thing is. And then look how dumb Trump's remark is. Iran appears to be standing down. Is firing 15 missiles at U.S. military bases standing down? I mean, the whole thing just treats you like you're a moron. And of course, you have to be to believe anything that you're seeing in the news, to have any faith in the presidency, to have any faith in the federal government, mainstream media. To believe in any of these things at all in 2020 is to be absolutely brain dead. So, if you don't know where you live in Hollywood. And pretty much everything that comes through the mainstream media is absolute bullshit, including everything you're reading about with Iran. I had some guy leave a 10-paragraph lecture about how we definitely killed the Iranian general, and nowhere in his 10 paragraphs did he have any evidence. Just prove that he's gullible and believes what he sees in the media. But again, this whole thing, every last detail should be questioned. None of it should be believed. And let's just review it all. So, yesterday when this supposed missile attack happened, it was January 7th in the U.S. It was 3 in the morning about in Iran, early January 8th. So, still January 7th, U.S. The acronym for the group responsible for the attack, the IRGC, has that gematria of 71, like how it was January 7th or 7/1 in the U.S. when this happened. So fitting day for them to respond. They had the funeral earlier in the day with the supposed stampede, which we'll get to. More bogus details by the numbers with no evidence to support any of it. Notice even how this tweet goes out about the attack. And it shows 3:53 p.m. January 7th. 353 is the 71st prime number. To go with another 71. And IRGC in Gematria also sums to 28. January 7th, 20 was a date with 28 numerology. So you have IRGC 28, Rockets 28, Airbase 28. Fitting day for this news story. Again, it's always news by the numbers. The retaliation had much to do with Donald Trump, of course, who ordered the attack on the general. January 7, 2020 was a date with 48 numerology as well. Donald Trump's 48. The first airbase that was attacked, supposedly, Al-Assad Airbase, has the gematria of 96. Freemason is 96 and 48. Again, Freemasonry runs the United States of America. Freemasonry runs Iran. It's the same people running the show between the two nations. And again, Iran is a puppet state of the United States of America. Has been ever since it was overthrown in 1953 by the CIA. The media is teasing us with, could this be the beginning of the next World War? World War has that gematria of 48. Al-Assad Air Base also sums to 39. At first they said that 10 missiles struck the base, and then later they said 15 total missiles were fired at two bases. But Al-Assad Air Base 39, when you write out 10, it's 39. When you write out war, it's 39. 10 also has the gematria of 42, like Freemason, like Iran, like war, like World War. In the end, they said 15 missiles were fired. Again, the word war has that gematria of 15 as well. Again, this is why you want to know your 4-base ciphers so you can see the full encoding. Ballistic missiles, the gematria of that is 66, like Iran as well. And the coordinates of the base that got the majority of the media attention on the 33rd parallel north, the 42nd meridian east, ballistic is 33, missiles is 33. They said that Mike Pence was just at this base for Thanksgiving on November 23rd, 2019. What's interesting about that is from November 23rd to January 7th, the day that it still was when the attack happened in the U.S., it was 45 days later. And of course, Donald Trump's number 45. Mike Pence, his name 45 in both reduction ciphers. So 45 days after Mike Pence visits, the base is attacked. What a coincidence. And let's see. Iran's IRGC hit airbase with surface-to-surface missiles according to state news. So Fox News put up this headline last night after the attack. Iran hits back. And notice what that encodes. 52. 52. And remember what Trump had said days before this. Trump warns the U.S. has targeted 52 Iranian sites. And again, 52, not an arbitrary number. The Cabal's 52, Kabbalah's 52, Tree of Life's 52. Again, this practice of coding numbers into words comes from Kabbalah. The physical model for Kabbalah's Tree of Life. Donald Trump has the Tree of Life Kabbalah plaque on his wall. The Jewish word for Tree of Life is Etzha Chaim. Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words, 52. Government, 52. Authority, 52. President, 52. White House, 52. The attack on the general came 52 days after Hassan Rouhani, the president of Iran's birthday, for another 52. Again, Donald Trump, the Trump card, 52 cards in the deck, 52 weeks in the year, the beginning of the year. And as we talked about the other day, Donald Trump said he picked the number 52 because that's how many American hostages there were in the Iran hostage crisis, which of course was a hoax by the numbers. Rather than revisit all that, we'll just we'll move on. You can go back and watch that video from the other day. So, right after these missile attacks, you get 2 earthquakes near the nuclear energy site in Iran. And you just got to go, well, what a coincidence. What a coincidence. Remember, the United States of America has things such as HARP, the energy weapon that has the ability to quake the ground. They said the first of the 2 earthquakes registered a 4.9 magnitude, the second a 4.5. And this happened at the Bushehr nuclear plant site. Bushehr has that gematria of 81. This happened on the date January 8th. 8/1 like 81. The word ritual is 81 as well. Today's date numerology is 49. The first of the 2 quakes was a 4.9 magnitude. Don't forget things like Washington, America, and Scottish all sum to 49, as in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. George Washington, the Scottish Rite Freemason. So, what a coincidence. And then you get the plane crash, and you get a plane crash in Iran that's a Ukrainian plane. And think about it. I mean, you have the whole Ukraine scandal with Trump, and the media is saying, is this wag the dog for Trump to distract from his impeachment and Ukraine scandal, and then a Ukrainian plane supposedly crashes? I mean, doesn't it just all seem a little bit far-fetched? So they say 176 are dead. And, of course, Donald J. Trump, his author name, sums to 176. Again, it's Boeing. Boeing has that gematria of 29. Today's crash has a 29 date numerology. The last Boeing 737 to crash was September 28th, 2018. And from that day to today, January 8th, 2020, it is 66 weeks and 6 days. 666, the number of the beast. And that's interesting because Tehran sums to 66, Iran sums to 66, number of the beast is 66, ballistic missiles is 66. You know, this supposedly came right after the ballistic missiles attack. Revelation, the 66th book of the Bible, teaches about 666. Iran, of course, in the biblical part of the world. And then I should mention that the word beast equals 47. Ukraine equals 47. You know, Trump's 47, President's 47, White House 47, so on. The whole scandal involves Joe Biden, the 47th vice president. You just got to say, what are the odds? What are the odds? All of these stories coming within hours of each other. And let's see. We got a caller. Let's see what caller's got to say. What's going on, caller?
Yeah, I was just curious if you had picked apart some other stuff with Boeing from yesterday. They came out with an interesting piece where there was a rumor that Warren Buffett was going to put $5 billion into Boeing, which rocketed the stock prior to the stock's opening, just enough to keep it buoyed. It ended up closing at 119 points down, so there may be this, stock market crash ritual with the world trade. Plus, same day and date, also yesterday, 6 Boeing B-52 bombers led 52 F-35 jets on what they call an elephant pattern before any of the missile strikes were happening. But there's a bunch of stuff related to those 2 events, and I just want to make you aware of them. And wish you a good day.
Well, I appreciate it very much. I didn't know about any of that, so that's all really interesting. I'll definitely do some more research on that. Great points.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Tom.
All right. Take care, man. See you. Yeah, and that's a great call, and that's exactly what it is. It's just, it's a bunch of riddles, a bunch of planned distractions, all leading up to the next page of the ongoing story we're living out. The world elite contriving history day by day. So, how about this one yesterday? Everyone had to report that the stampede killed at least 56. And what's the real point of stories like this? Is it to convince people in the West that these people are just barbaric? They can't even have a funeral without stampeding and killing each other. So look at this. Everyone went with the same number, at least 56. And you should just read that and be like, really? At least 56? Like, not at least 50 or 60. At least 56. Hold on, let me take this call real quick and then I'll finish the point here. Caller? Hello?
Oh, hi, Doc.
Yes.
I love your stuff, you know.
Thank you.
So I found out today that the aunt of the King of Spain, Felipe VI, died. The Duchess of Gardaston. I don't know if you heard about it.
I didn't know that yet. No, I'll have to look into that one too.
It just happened like hours ago today.
Let's see. Okay, I will look into it.
Okay, she died of colon cancer.
Colon cancer. All right, I will give it a look.
Okay.
All right.
I think it's by the numbers because of
It probably is. I will look into it. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, Zach.
All right, you take care. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so coming back, the stampede kills at least 56, and of course the name Soleimani's 56, but also it was 56 days after the president's birthday. And it's been a few years since we talked about the president of Iran, but when he supposedly won his election, it was by the numbers, of course, just like same thing that goes on over here. The point is, again, across the world, you learn the code, you see what they're really encoding in the headlines. Rituals. And most of it is to create perception, distract. But this is where the number 56 came from. It's why everyone reported at least 56. So, what do you know? There's probably more to it as well. And let's not forget, Donald Trump's September 15th, 2019, this was the headline. U.S. is locked and loaded, and this was in response to Iran. Ready to attack Iran, September 15th. And then what happens? Notice locked and loaded's 110 like president. What happens exactly 110 days later on January 3rd? You get the supposed killing of the general. Locked and loaded 110, airstrike 110, president 110. And again, 110, not an arbitrary number. Big number on September 11th when the 110-story World Trade Centers come crashing down and were blamed on Osama bin Laden. They called it the new Pearl Harbor. It happened 110 days from the Hollywood release of Pearl Harbor. Again, reminding you who runs the show. Same people who run Hollywood run your government. And all of these stories, again, they're to distract, they're to instill fear. After the attack, there were rumors that the draft might return. And, there probably will be a day when the draft returns and they'll have us on to the next big war. We'll do it on their timetable, whenever they're ready. The problem is, it's like the boy who cried wolf. So many stories like this over the years. Are we on the verge of war? Are we on the verge of war again? You just never know. But you see how quickly it can come and just how random and just how the media just starts beating the drum. Like, honestly, who'd ever even heard of this general before? Did anybody know the name of this general? And some people are liars. They'll be like, oh yeah, I knew the name of that general. He was a bad guy. The reality is nobody knows the name of this general in the U.S. Nobody had heard this name. Nobody was thinking about this name until all of a sudden it's the story. And then you get all these pretenders on YouTube who get on and say, oh yeah, he was a bad dude. That was a bad guy right there. It's like, who in America is calling anyone else a bad guy? All the worst people in the world are the people who occupy our government. We are the biggest terrorist the world has ever seen. Period. End discussion. Soleimani, this guy's nothing. Nothing. But remember, all this stuff, it happened on a date with 44 numerology. The attack of the general, January 3rd, 2020, date with 44 numerology. The draft, 44. Military, 44. Soldier, infantry, trooper. The list goes on. It's been 47 years since there was a draft. That is something to think about. It's a big number there with the controllers, number that represents time. So we'll see what happens in 2020. But again, supposedly the evidence of the death of the general was this picture of his ring. And the day he died, it was a date with 24 numerology as well. Ring in Iran, 24. It makes me wonder what might happen 24 days later on January 27th. That'll be a date with 68 numerology. CIA 68, what controls Iran. Donald John Trump 68. Another big number with the gang. So that's a date I'm looking out for, January 27th. Where could things be by then? And when Soleimani died, he died 68 days before his birthday. Reportedly died, if he's even really dead. Could just be retired. He was 62. That's near retirement age. General equals 62 like sacrifice. Here it is, from the January 3rd death to his March 11th birthday, 68 days. They love that number. Don't forget, 1968, the year World Trade Center construction began. The year 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. The year George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones. Bush's birthday, July 6th to September 11th every year, is a span of 68 days. The word terror, 68. They called this guy a terrorist. Don't forget what the definition of terrorism is, the original definition, government by intimidation. Also, don't forget that when this gentleman died, whose name equals 82, we said we were sending 3,000 more troops to the Middle East from the 82nd Airborne Division. And by the way, that airbase that was shot up last night houses the 82nd Airborne Division. Soldiers also 82. Again, you got to know the ciphers forwards and backwards. Qasem Soleimani is also 62, like how he died at age 62. Born on the 70th day of the year, airstrike 70. And speaking of 70, look who's 70 right now, Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel loved this. Notice from Netanyahu's birthday, his 70th birthday, October 21st, to the day the general was reportedly killed, was 74 days. 74, huh? Killing Jewish Masonic 74. That other number they love to operate around so often. 74 days after Netanyahu's birthday, you get the attack on the Iranian general. Israel's biggest enemy, Iran. U.S. strike gives Netanyahu a chance to shift focus from legal woes, but not for long. Isn't that the same thing over here in the U.S. with the two puppets, Trump and Netanyahu? And then you got, little mouthpiece Ben Shapiro. His headline was, "So long, Soleimani." Who do you think came up with his headline? Remember Daily Wire, another publication that does things by the numbers. So long, Soleimani, just like Qasem Soleimani. Ben Shapiro all gigged up about the assassination and killing. Isn't it strange how right-wingers just love war and murder and killing? And then they always act like they're the holier-than-thou because they're the pro-lifers, The only lives that matter to right-wingers are those that haven't been born yet. Fox News covering Shapiro's coverage of the whole hoax. This was yesterday, January 7th, 7-1. Just news by the numbers. Mike Pompeo comes out and says that it was propaganda to claim that Soleimani was on a diplomatic mission in Iraq. They emphasized propaganda. Yesterday had the 48-date numerology. Again, news by the numbers all day, every day, from CNN to Fox News to the BBC to Al Jazeera to MSNBC. Same with all the major news networks. Different spin on the same propaganda. So anyway, we'll see where it goes from here. You know, Donald Trump, again, made it seem like it might be cooling off for a little bit. For the first time in the history of the world, firing 15 missiles is the same as standing down. But again, I highly doubt even 15 missiles were fired. Again, here's your supposed evidence of the damage, which obviously nobody can make out. Just like when the same thing happened in Syria. So, we'll leave it there. I'm losing my voice again. Still not all the way better. This is probably the worst sickness I've ever had in my life, but it'll pass soon enough. So, we'll leave it there, Truth Seeker. Till next time.